Hey everybody, Barbie here. First of all, I have to say that this episode is brought to you by 24houranswers.com, our first sponsor. Great people, they're helping us out. I'm going to put all their information in the description box below. Check them out, they're great. But yeah, so anyway, this is the third episode of Geography More. For those of you who don't know, Geography More is where we cover the extra information that didn't quite make it into the country videos prior, and today's episode is going to be on Argentina, Armenia, and Australia. First up, Argentina. So there are a lot of things I did not get to mention in the Argentina video, and one of the things I wanted to kind of expound a little bit more on was the fact that Argentina has a very complex and confusing political dynamic that kind of just exudes throughout the entire country, and it's been going on for a while. I mean, each political party even has their own brand of beer. But essentially what you really just have to know is the fact that the country has gone through a lot of strange periods. In the late 1800s, there was a national autonomous hegemony, then there was the radical governments, the infamous decade between 1930 and 1943, the revolution, another revolution, the radical administrations, another revolution, the unstable militaristic years, the reorganizing years, and then finally the new democracy years. They even had a very brief moment in time in 2001 where they had 5 presidents in 10 days. One person that really sticks out in Argentine history though would have to be Eva Perón, also known as Evita. Little Evita was super famous. She was a film and radio actress as well as a model and the first lady, wife of former president Juan Perón. She did a lot of things for the country. She started a lot of organizations. She spoke on behalf of labor rights and women's suffrage, and she just did a lot of stuff, and she died at the age of 33. Over 3 million people showed up to her funeral when she died, and to this day her legacy lives on. Just a few little side extra notes about Argentina. Argentina is the home of the highest number of psychiatrists per capita. Buenos Aires, the capital, is home to the world's widest avenue. Also in 1977, the Argentine government deliberately sent a pregnant woman to Antarctica to give birth and officially claim the title of the first person born in Antarctica, Emilio Palma. However, the Norwegians will argue that Solveig Gunborg Jakobsen was probably the first person, even though he was born on South Georgia Island, which is kind of technically not considered part of Antarctica, but it kind of is, but debatable. Che Guevara, famous Cuban revolutionist who followed the Marxist ideologies of his time, was also born in Argentina. He was not Cuban, get that right. Now, one thing is, a lot of people will tell you it's probably not a good idea to go to Argentina to learn Spanish. That's because the Argentines have a very, very distinct dialect that doesn't really quite resonate with all the other Latin American countries. As mentioned in the Argentina video, a huge chunk of Argentina's population is actually Italian, and so that type of dialect resonates throughout the way how they speak. A lot of times, not all the times, but a lot of times, they might even substitute the double L-y sound with a sh. ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo Carlos. Specifically the Terra del Fuego area. A long time ago, this area was actually kind of like a penal colony. They would send their prisoners here. And you'll kind of see a pattern going on. A lot of countries sent their prisoners to like a very far off remote area. Terra del Fuego was kind of like that for Argentina. Long story short, in order to build the prisons, they had to send off the lumber via train, so they built a train, and to this day the train was rebuilt, and now it's kind of like a tourist thing known as the world's southernmost operating train system. The end of the world train. So those are just a few things about Argentina. Of course, there's a lot more other things I didn't quite mention, but if you know anything, please write them down. Otherwise, we gotta move on. Armenia! So the Armenia and Azerbaijan videos were the countries that I got the most flack for because of political controversy. See, one thing you have to understand is that the actual people in Armenia and Turkey and Azerbaijan are typically more or less very radically different from the actual governments of Armenia, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. To this day, there are tons of people who are Turkish and Azerbaijani that have friends that are Armenian. It's not impossible for them to be friends. And, shocker, there are even some couples in which one person is Turkish and the other is Armenian or Azerbaijani. It's like, it happens. When you're attracted to somebody, it kind of really transcends race and political affiliation. I've actually talked to a lot of Turkish and Armenians, and the overwhelming consensus is that they don't hate each other. It's just their governments and the extreme nationalists that clash. So yes, on the external level, there are political disparities. However, very small things are happening to show that they're at least attempting in a very small sense to to make progress. Their leaders do actually kind of commonly visit each other's countries, and even though not much really gets done, hey, at least they're talking. Anyway, that's going to incite another comment war in the comments below. But anyway, let's get back to the actual country's facts. Few fun things. Yerevan is sometimes referred to as the Pink City, as many of the buildings in that area are built with naturally colored volcanic rocks. There's a stork village with high pillars that are built up so that the storks can use them to nest on top. Lake Sevan is a huge part of Armenia that has enormous economical and cultural significance. The lake in itself provides about 90% of the fish and 80% of the crawfish market in all of Armenia. Not only that, but it's a beautiful place with lots of recreational spots that Armenians like to go on vacation. Armenia has some great views, especially in the Sunik Valley, where you can view them on the Tatev Wings aerial tramway that takes you between Halidzor and the Tatev Monastery. It is the world's longest reversible aerial tramway built on only one section, and also holds the record for the longest non-stop double-track cable car, constructed in 2010. The region of Armenia also has an incredibly long history. Even before the former Soviet Union, before the Ottomans, before it even became the world's first Christian nation, Armenia has had its roots planted centuries prior to even the Common Era. The city of Yerevan is actually older than Rome itself by about 3 decades. Armenia is also home to the Temple of Garni, the only Greco-Roman colonnaded building in all of the former Soviet Union, and don't be surprised to find a lot of Armenians with last names that end in either Ian or Yan, which is kind of like the same thing but just spelled differently. And also France, I'm sorry, but Armenia kind of beat you at having the world's oldest winery. Discovered in 2011, the Areni winery is speculated to be about 6,000 years old. Also, one last thing, a lot of Armenians won't exactly quite know how to answer it themselves, but if you ask them, do you consider yourself part of Europe or Asia? Some of them might say Asia, some of them might say Europe, but a lot of them will just say, we're just part of the Caucasus region. In a very fundamental sense though, a lot of them might say they culturally kind of resonate more with Europe. And the same thing goes for Azerbaijan and Georgia. They're just, they're the Caucasus region. That's all they can really say. So as you can see, Armenia is kind of like a small country with a lot of weird tension, but hey, we gotta move on. Next, Australia. Okay, there are so many things in the Australia video that I didn't get to mention, but the one thing I really kind of wanted to talk about was the fact that Australia probably has the most funny events recorded in their history. This could be anything from the 200 or so female convicts mooning the governor of Tasmania, that drunk guy who charged on a horse cutting the ribbon of Sydney Harbour Bridge on the opening day, the prime minister that went for a swim in the ocean and then disappeared mysteriously, or in 1932 how they declared war on emus, and they lost that war. Australia, you guys are hilarious. Also, another thing I wish I could have mentioned, but it actually wasn't brought up until after my video was uploaded, was the fact that Australia announced that in 2018, they're going to make the North Territory another state of Australia. It's going to move up from territory status to statehood. Also, another fun side fact, it's not that surprising, but with statistical data included, Australians actually really do like beer. The average Aussie drinks about 96 liters of beer every year. Even their own former Prime Minister Bob Hawke is famous for setting a world record for sculling 2.5 pints of beer in 11 seconds. Let's see what else we got here. Australia is also the only continent with no active volcanoes. However, I don't really feel like Australia is in itself a continent because, I mean, where else would you classify the other countries in that Pacific area like New Zealand or Tuvalu or whatever? So I kind of prefer to call the entire area Oceania. I know some people pronounce it Oceania, but it's like ocean and ia, so I just pronounce it Oceania. But for what it's worth, I guess you could say Australia is the largest continuous landmass that has no active volcanoes or something like that. One reason why Australia has a lot of bushfires is partially because eucalyptus trees are highly flammable, or at least the oil in the eucalyptus trees. Koalas can be very aggressive. Do not anger a koala, by the way. They also have the world's longest fence, over 5,600 kilometers. It was originally built to kind of keep dingoes out of the fertile areas along the coasts. Here's another cool thing. Australia actually does have some snowy parts. You wouldn't really think they do, but they do. Most of the snow is concentrated in the Australian Alps, found in Victoria and New South Wales, and believe it or not, on average, these mountains actually get more snow than Switzerland. It's a cool spot that the locals and tourists like to check out. And finally, one last thing that I kind of want to dispel is the fact that a lot of people think that the Dutch were the first outsiders besides the Aborigines to discover Australia. And that's actually not true. China actually has documented records of sailors and fishers going back and forth between Australia and the mainland, mostly for trade and for fishing. It's kind of interesting though, because China never really saw Australia as a place that they thought about colonizing. They really just kind of wanted to exploit the advantage of shipping and commerce and fishing in that area. Now, there's a lot more about Australia that I missed out even in this this video, so if you think of anything that I didn't mention, please write it in the comments. Teach me something. So that's about it. The Colombia episode will be coming up soon. I'll try to get it maybe at the end of this week or the beginning of next week. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for your support. Subscribe to this channel if you want. We're almost at 200,000, so help us get there. And also, thank you so much for the Patreon patrons that have been helping out. My family is so appreciative of what you guys are doing. Thank you so much. Thank you 24 Hour Answers for helping sponsor us, and really glad you guys are watching the show and you like it. You geography peeps are the best. Thank you so much. Stay cool, stay tuned.